for us, Sandy McCown. Good afternoon to you. Just how dire is the situation? You know, there was so much focus on day zero in Cape Town that in many ways I think people forgot that the city of Port Elizabeth was perhaps in an even more powerless position.
Yes, Jeremy. The situation in Nelson Mandela Bay was very dire for quite a while, until last month when there was a downpour of rain, which helped a little bit. The 5 capacity dams that we have in Nelson Mandela Bay are all at just on 50%. Now the municipality is saying that that is not enough. They're saying that we are not out of the red zone yet. They're saying more needs to be done. Therefore, they are not willing to reduce the water restrictions at this stage. They're saying that there aren't great forecasts for any kind of rain in the next coming months. We also have the festive season approaching, where an influx of tourists are expected to come into the city, which will increase the capacity and the need for water in the city. Therefore, the municipality says they are continuing to look for alternative sources to ensure that the taps in Nelson Mandela don't dry up. Now, one of the projects they have been looking at is boreholes. They say that they've been digging for boreholes around Nelson Mandela Bay, and they have now have 5 solid boreholes. They say that they can get 26 megalitres of water from, which will help the capacity in Nelson Mandela Bay. But I've been speaking to environmental experts who are saying that this might be a short-term solution, but in the long term, they say that it will actually negatively affect the water quality of the water in Port Elizabeth. I'm now joined by Professor Nadine Stradam, who is a coastal ecologist, to unpack the problems around this issue. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
The Nelson Mandela Bay municipality, they launched this borehole project today. They're saying that the boreholes is a cheaper alternative to desalination. They say this is the way that they can keep the taps running in case we go back to a very dire situation in the water crisis. Do you think this is a solution?
Certainly, as an interim solution, but borehole water should never be relied upon as a long-term solution for our water crisis. In the metro, we have been subject to a severe drought. The public have been well informed, and they are involved in water-saving measures, but there's a lot more that we as citizens can actually do. With the onset of the festive season coming along, it's important that we follow the role of what hotels in Cape Town have done and follow their austerity measures when it comes to water resources. Sinking boreholes essentially is tapping into groundwater, and groundwater is not a renewable resource, certainly not in the lifetime of the average human being today. Let's call it 70 years. Borehole water is groundwater that's thousands of years old, and it takes many hundreds to thousands of years to replenish that water. So what we take out of the ground isn't replaced by the next rainfall. And that water reserve is there to actually support ecosystems, coastal and inland ecosystems. It's there to feed necessary fresh water to rivers and estuaries and all those sorts of things. So in actual fact, the very plants that we have on the planet are supported by a water table that is fed by groundwater. So it's dire if we're going to cheap options instead of looking at more plausible long-term environmental solutions to our water problem. And desalination is most certainly something we should be considering to supplement our water supplies.
Yes, I was just going to ask you about desalination. Do you think this is actually a long-term solution to this problem? Because Port Elizabeth and Nelson Mandela Bay in general is known as quite a drought-stricken area over the long term. What do you think?
Yes, well, desalination is most certainly a means of supplementing our water resources, but desalination is also not something that you can do in a hurry. It's a process that's costly, and it needs to be planned well in advance by careful municipal management and environmental consultation. So to sink boreholes and say we're going to now be supplying extra water to the city, it should be an absolute last resort. That is our absolute last resort for drinking drinking water. And that said, you know, a lot of our borehole water and groundwater is actually contaminated today, whether it's organic and inorganic pollutants, heavy metals, cemetery discharge, all sorts of things pollute our modern groundwater. And groundwater needs to be carefully used. And a lot of people are actually using it indiscriminately in the city. There are many cases of members of the public who've been given private licenses to service their homes with borehole water, and they are now extracting this water and providing it, selling it illegally to people to fill their swimming pools, their car garages around the city that are constantly still washing cars, and it's obvious that their water is coming from a borehole source. It's not coming from water that they've bought in to maintain car washing. Most car wash businesses in the metro have actually closed down. And the public should actually ask their car wash businesses that they're using, where is that water coming from? It should not be coming from borehole water to wash vehicles. It's actually it's a complete and utter tragedy that we are turning to borehole water as a cheap alternative instead of actually focusing on proper end user education, public involvement, and also making sure that we deal with the leaks, the extensive leaks around the city. We are losing thousands of litres a day through poor infrastructure, poor management and leaking infrastructure. And that needs to be attended to too before the quick solution and the cheap solution of sinking a borehole and providing additional water to the metro is even thought about.
What do you think the metro should do about private boreholes and boreholes in general? Because they're saying that boreholes, even these boreholes that they have sunk now, they are giving water to people to say you can use it in construction and swimming pools. What do you think they should do?
I think it should be on a needs basis. You know, the primary needs of the citizens of the city should be taken into first, and that's providing good drinking water. And, you know, obviously development and that sort of thing, you know, should take second stage. We really are in a crisis and we have to manage it properly.
Thank you so much, Professor Nadine Stradham, for speaking to us. As you heard, there are alternative sources to water, and maybe boreholes is not the best solution. That is according to environmentalists. They're saying there could be a long-term implication of using borehole water.
Sandy
Jeremy?
Bacan, thank you.